Woodrow Wilson served as the US president from March 1913 until March 1921. His health had been poor already before his becoming president. As a university professor at Princeton, he nearly collapsed under his workload, and thereafter he was forced to learn to pace himself better. He had suffered a hemorrhage in one eye already, I think, in the 1890s, and eventually he became virtually blind in that eye. Actually, he was almost blind at the time of his death in February 1924, after a retirement of just under 3 years. Obviously, the stresses and strains of the First World War, first keeping or trying to keep the United States officially out of it, and then managing the war effort after the United States at last declared war on Germany and its allies in April 1917. Those contributed to his health's decline, as well as the solid Republican opposition and the opposition of certain fellow Democrats to the US membership in the League of Nations. He tried in the summer and early autumn of 1919 to rally the US public opinion by crisscrossing the United States, the contiguous states, of course, and Alaska and Hawaii were not even states but only territories back then. So in the summer and early autumn of 1919. However, in late September 1919, he suffered a physical breakdown, and he then hastily returned by train to Washington, D.C., where he rested. But after just 1 week of rest, on October the 2nd or 3rd, 1919, he suffered a nearly fatal and profoundly debilitating stroke in the White House. After that, he was unable to govern the United States. But back in that time, there was so much moral authority vested in the US presidency that few people publicly demanded and vocally demanded that the president should resign. Although he was clearly unable to govern the United States during the last 17 months of his term, no one, according to a presidential biographer, William A. de Gregorio, in his book, A Complete Book of the US Presidents, challenged his right to remain president. He is chief of staff, and his wife, second wife, mind you, his first wife had died of natural causes, then decided which matters were so important that they should be brought to his attention. Somehow he was able to survive until the end of his presidency. Obviously, he did not seek a third term in 1920. It would have been a suicide to do so, and he would never have received the Democratic Party's presidential nomination as a clearly handicapped person. He then quietly retired to his home in Washington, D.C., and during his nearly 3-year retirement, he kept mostly out of the public view. He did, however, on Armistice Day, November the 11th, 1923, so less than 3 months before his death, which happened on or around, I think, February the 3rd, 1924, he did give a brief speech on the radio about the importance of the Armistice Day, and he did even speak to a group of people gathered outside his retirement home. And in it, he expressed confidence that those who favored cooperation, harmonious cooperation between different countries would prevail with God's help. I'm paraphrasing what he said. I think that few people have come forward to claim that he was assassinated. The fact was that he died of either a stroke or then other cardiovascular diseases. What was certain was that his body had pretty much worn out, and although he was only 67 years old only by our standards, it was already a fairly advanced age by the 1920s standards, and given his long history of poor health, it was not at all surprising that he died already at the age of 67, and as we can strongly conclude, from natural causes.